I'm Kelly Greene, Minister of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness. I'm honored to be here with you today on the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. I'm joined virtually today with my colleagues Randene Neill, Minister of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship, and Ravi Parmar, Minister of Forests. We'll also have online Cliff Chapman from the BC Wildfire Service, who will provide an update on the wildfire conditions in British Columbia. I want to begin by acknowledging the people and communities throughout British Columbia who are being challenged by wildfires. I know that for many of you, this is an incredibly stressful and uncertain time, and my heart is with you. Some people have lost their homes, businesses, and places that hold a lifetime of memories. Others have been asked to leave their home and are waiting to see if it's safe to return. I want you to know that you are not alone. The province is working around the clock to support First Nations and local governments in keeping you and your family safe. The wildfire activity that we've seen over the last week continues to be dynamic. As of 9 a.m. this morning, there are 37 evacuation orders impacting approximately 8,000 people and 7,300 properties, and 37 evacuation alerts impacting approximately 7,100 people and 3,800 properties. The orders and alerts over the past few days have been changing hourly. This reinforces just how important it is for everyone throughout the province to be prepared, even if you're not under alert yet. Have a grab-and-go bag ready, packed for each member of your household, including your pets. Stay informed through emergencyinfobc.ca and through your local government and First Nation. You should also create an emergency services profile through the BC Services Card app or at ess.gov.bc.ca. At the same time, emergency management professionals in my ministry are working to ensure that people who are evacuated get the supports they need. And they're planning ahead so that if the situation worsens and more large evacuations are needed, we are as prepared as we can be. That preparation includes working with providers of accommodation and group lodging in different parts of the province so that we have options that are ready to go if they're needed. And we're also receiving emergency management experts from Alberta to bolster our provincial emergency response team. Additional firefighters are arriving from Mexico and other jurisdictions, and Minister Parmar will have more to say about that. Emergency response is a team effort, and everyone has a role to play. One of British Columbia's greatest strengths is how people come together in times of need. It's understandable that people want to do everything that they can to protect their homes. But during an evacuation order, the single most important thing you can do is leave immediately. Local governments and First Nations work closely with their communities to support people in evacuating. And evacuation orders are issued by local governments and First Nations as a last resort to protect lives and save the community. They're based on the best information, evidence, and decades of experience from emergency officials and wildfire experts. If you ignore an evacuation order and later need medical help or rescuing, it can put first responders in danger and take them off their important work protecting the community. Or emergency responders might not be able to reach you at all if the conditions are too dangerous. Please follow all evacuation orders and instructions from local officials and leave the area immediately. And to everyone that has evacuated their homes, thank you. Emergency support services are available to anyone who needs help during an evacuation meeting their basic needs. And that includes accommodation, food, clothing, and other incidentals. As of this morning, there are over 5,700 people being supported by ESS, which can be accessed in person at reception centres or online at ess.gov.bc.ca. If you need help accessing these services, you can also phone the BC Evacuee Helpline at 1-800-387-4258. Please continue to listen to the directions of your local government or First Nation, who will inform you when it's safe to return. Thank you. I'll now pass it over to Minister Parmar.
Thanks very much, Minister Greene, and good morning, British Ravi Parmar. I have the honor to serve as BC's Minister of Forest and the Minister responsible for the BC Wildfire Service. I'm joining you from a different location this morning from the Provincial Wildfire Coordination Centre, just outside of the centre here in Kamloops, British Columbia, on Tecumseh's territory. This is a real tough situation right now in British Columbia. My colleague Cliff Chapman, the provincial director, will have an opportunity to be able to provide a direct update on operations. But I want to begin, as Minister Greene did, by acknowledging my thoughts are with all British Columbians who are impacted by wildfires during these very difficult times. The cold front over the course of the weekend through the long weekend certainly posed many challenges in different parts of the province. But I want to thank all those of our frontline responders, our BC Wildfire Service professionals, and everyone who has stepped up to be able to help support communities in their time of need. I also want to take the opportunity to thank local leaders, mayors, councillors, regional district directors, chiefs of local First Nations for their incredible leadership in supporting their communities during these challenging times. Last night when I arrived here in the interior, I had a conversation with a guy named Nick who owns Stagecoach Cafe in Clinton, British Columbia. And it was that conversation that reminded me about the impact the wildfires can have on families, on communities, and also the good that comes from people coming together. When Nick heard that there was crews from Mexico arriving in British Columbia as a family that just had to evacuate from Clinton, British Columbia, leave their home, leave their business, the first thing that came to mind was what could we do to help feed those crews and make them feel home here in British Columbia. I think that speaks to the determination, the resiliency, and the good that comes from the people of British Columbia. And I want to thank all those like Nick who are thinking of our wildland firefighters and are doing their part every single day. I'm providing an update on the wildfire situation here in British Columbia, and without a doubt, it is certainly a challenging situation. The forecast for later this week that Cliff will touch on will call for more hot and dry weather that will continue to create challenging wildfire situations and conditions, particularly in southern British Columbia, with dry lightning in the forecast. As of this morning, there are 120 wildfires burning across BC, with many wildfires of note as well. Over the last 7 days, 102 fires have been called out, 15 fires in the last 24 hours. Throughout British Columbia, we have over 1,000 personnel directly engaged in the fight in our wildfire response efforts. This includes structural firefighters deployed in coordination with the BC Wildfire Service, working right now to protect homes and protect communities. They're also joined by local fire departments assisting with structural protection and defense, and international personnel are arriving this week, including from Mexico yesterday afternoon. And Australian crews will also join in supporting our efforts as well. I had the pleasure of greeting over 100 wildland firefighters who arrived from Mexico yesterday, and there are hundreds more arriving later this week. In addition to international crews, Team Canada continues to step up and support us and stand with us in our time in need. We have firefighting personnel from Alberta, Quebec, Prince Edward Island, Yukon, including the Canadian Forest Service. I want to speak to all of those individuals, our international partners, including our partners here in Canada, and on behalf of all British Columbians, thank them for being here to support us in our time of need. But I also want to be clear as well. Despite making good progress on many fires, we are still in the midst of a very challenging wildfire season here in British Columbia. Our top priority remains protecting people and communities. August and September are often the most active period for wildfire in our province. We know the BC Wildfire Service almost certainly has several weeks of high-intensity work left before the wildfire season has settled. But British Columbians have been here before. Fires are starting quickly and acting unpredictably, and everyone in British Columbia should be prepared and plan ahead. That's why I'm asking once again for every British Columbian to stay up to date by downloading the Wildfire app on their mobile device. Take precautions and prepare an emergency plan and report fires when they see them. You British Columbians are our eyes and ears on the ground. You can do this by going on the BC Wildfire app to report a fire or by calling star 5555 from a cell phone. Even if you think the fire has already been reported, new information and photos are extremely helpful to our BC Wildfire Service personnel. And please continue to stay informed on the fire bans in your region. Campfire bans in place for much of southern British Columbia are important in helping the conditions right now. If you are thinking about heading out and starting a campfire, give a second thought. Do your part. Always check with local authorities before starting a fire of any kind. You can find more information about prohibitions, evacuations, driving conditions, and the current wildfire situation on the BC Wildfire Service website or app. I'm now pleased to turn it over to my colleague Cliff Chapman from the BC Wildfire Service.
Thank you very much, Minister Parmar, and thanks for having me today. My name is Cliff Chapman. I'm the Director of Provincial Operations for BC Wildfire Service. I want to provide a couple updates, primarily around a significant amount of questions that we've been receiving over the last number of days, in particular over the weekend. But before I jump into that, and I will also be here for questions after, I did just want to take a moment and say thank you. Specifically, I want to say thank you to the BC Wildfire Service personnel who are working 24 hours a day right now across the southern part of the province, and many folks from the northern part of the province have come down to support the south. And it's worth noting that these fires, in particular the fires that have impacts to communities, to people's livelihoods, have a significant impact on our frontline workers. Nobody wants to see somebody's home burn. Nobody wants to see a wildfire have an impact like the Bradley Creek fire had on Saturday because of the forecasted cold front conditions. And it has a profound impact on our people. And I can say, as somebody who's been in BC Wildfire Service now for over 20 years, that our organization is resilient, we are proud, and we continue to try to do everything we can to protect people's homes and get people back into their homes if they're under evacuation order. And we will continue to do so until the last smoke clears in the coming months. So again, if you see a firefighter on the street getting gas, or as Minister Parmar mentioned with the wonderful story of feeding the firefighters coming in from Mexico, just offer a thank you. You have no idea how much it means to these folks who are working 16, 18, 20 hours a day, doing everything they can to support British Columbians. With that, I just want to touch on a couple of questions that we've been receiving. I will say, for more specific operational updates, I'm happy to answer questions, but you will always receive the most up-to-date operational information on our website, bcwildfire.ca, or on our app if you can download it from the Android or the App Store. So please continue to go there for specific wildfire operational updates, but I'm happy to provide some if there's specific questions after as we go to questions today. The couple of questions I wanted to address, the first one is around resourcing. We are often asked about, do we have enough resources? And are we being told that we're not able to bring in more? I just want to address this really clearly. We are always supported to bring in what is required to try to do everything we can in this province. I think what we are learning, and what we've been learning over the last 5 to 7 years, is that sometimes on some days, like on Saturday's cold front passage, there is never enough resources to try to combat that fire. If we are not on every square inch of this province, then we cannot stop every single fire that could potentially start. I am very proud of the organization and the support that we have received to bring in upwards of 600 resources from across Canada and across the world in the weeks ahead. And they are coming sooner than we have ever seen before when we have anticipated fire like we did going into the weekend, and already having resources rolling yesterday and more rolling throughout the rest of this week. And the timing of that is really critical because our own people have been going now for 2-3 weeks in a row, working these very tremendously long hours, grueling conditions, and they need to take a few days. So these crews coming in will both help us surge to meet the demand, but they will also allow us to rest our own British Columbian resources when they desperately need it. So again, I just wanted to touch on that resourcing is not an issue. We continue to be supported to bring in and do what we need to do to try to suppress and be active on these fires. The second thing that I want to address is just the next several days. Minister Parmar mentioned that the weeks or the days and weeks ahead are going to be challenging for British Columbia, and they will be. Specifically, I will say in the southern part of the Caribou Fire Center, the Kamloops Fire Center, and the Southeast Fire Center. So sort of south of Williams Lake down to the U.S. border, into the Fraser Canyon and then over to the Alberta border. We continue to see significant drought conditions in those areas, and we are now entering a drying trend for the next couple of days, where we'll see those low to mid 30 temperatures, very low RHs, and no rain. What we are also forecasting now is that we may see the return of dry lightning, which means lightning that is associated with little to no precipitation. And we suspect that that is going to hit those 3 fire centers that I just mentioned as the fire centers that are holding the most extreme fire danger rating. We anticipate the timing of this to be late Thursday afternoon into the evening, and it will continue on Friday and into Saturday. If it materializes, which we're continuing to monitor this essentially hourly to look for timing, we will continue to put messaging out on our social feeds as well as information bulletins on the timing of this event. But it will mean that we will see more fires across southern BC. The exact location of those fires is not predictable right now, but as we start to track that system, we will do everything we can to get information out. We are ready. We have our resources available that are our initial attack resources. We have extra aircraft in the province, both helicopter and fixed wing, to try to surge to any new starts. But I anticipate that this weekend we are going to see more starts in BC, and there may be more challenging fires ahead. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Minister Neill, and again, happy to take questions after. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Cliff. My name is Randene Neill. I'm BC's Minister of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship and the MLA for Powell River Sunshine Coast. And I'm joining today from the unceded territory of the Upper Smilkameen Indian Band in Princeton. Just like everyone else this morning, I just want to echo how tough this current situation is for people who are impacted by the wildfire and the evacuations, as well as the communities impacted by drought. I spent this past long weekend in the Okanagan, and on Saturday from my parents' farm in Vernon, watched the Bradley Creek fire tear through. When those winds picked up Saturday afternoon, it was absolutely devastating. And this hot, dry weather has made wildfire conditions worse in recent weeks, and also increased drought conditions in many parts of BC, as Cliff mentioned. And that's why, again, today, we are asking everyone who uses water, water suppliers, residents, and businesses to take action now to conserve water and reduce the water scarcity risks. With deep gratitude and appreciation, I really want to thank everyone who is helping to do their part. These actions are making a huge difference. Voluntary conservation, as we've said many times, is always our first and preferred step. And even with significant efforts on the ground, we are seeing low stream flows in many parts of the province. And we are especially concerned with conditions in the Okanagan, where we have seen record low flows in some areas. It is critical everyone in the Okanagan put water conservation at top of mind. The water use choices that you make today will make a difference to future water scarcity conditions. Yesterday, I spent the day with some farmers in the Salmon River area and learned about all of the measures that they took and are taking to improve flows in the watershed in Salmon River. And I wanted to just say to them, thank you for showing me around. Thank you for showing me your farms yesterday and all your crops and the worries that you have moving forward. Despite those efforts of the farmers and producers, back on July 28th, I did issue a temporary protection order temporarily restricting water use for those users, including for forage crops like grass for hay, alfalfa, and forage corn. Just like every time we issue one of those orders, it is an absolute last resort. These orders are targeted and designed to restore and protect critical stream flows as quickly as possible, and they are only considered when voluntary conservation measures are not enough to prevent serious or irreversible harm to a fish population. I know how tough drought is for BC's farmers, and we appreciate everything you are doing to make that better. We know that these decisions bring serious impacts for farmers in the area, and we're here to help. Affected farmers who are enrolled in the Ministry of Agriculture and Foods Production Insurance or agri-stability programs are eligible to receive support to help with margin-related income declines or costs associated with drought. Access to water is absolutely crucial for food production, and we are working with farmers and ranchers on long-term proactive solutions to prevent water scarcity. We will continue to work together to respond to these drought conditions and to reduce water scarcity challenges. And once again, I want to thank all of the volunteers. My heart goes out to everyone who's been affected by drought and these wildfires. And now I'll turn it back to Minister Greene.
Thank you, Minister Neill. I know this is an incredibly challenging time for so many people in the province. And with the difficult weather forecast at the end of the week, I want to encourage everyone to pre-register for emergency support services at ess.gov.bc.ca. This helps you and your family in the event that you are evacuated. I also want to thank everybody who has stepped up to support people in BC over this long weekend and throughout this fire season. Whether you've opened your home to a family member that's been evacuated, housed a pet for a friend, delivered meals, or checked in on a loved one, you're making a real difference to your loved ones and to your community. And on behalf of everyone in BC, I want to thank you all. I want to also thank all of the emergency personnel, whether you're a firefighter, a first responder, ESS staff or volunteer, a search and rescue member, or a member in a responding local government or First Nation. The important work you do is so valuable to keeping people and communities safe. And I want to thank you for all of your time and hard work. We now have time for questions. We have technical experts on the line to answer questions, including Cliff Chapman, who is the Director of the Wildfire Operations with BC Wildfire Service, Kevin Dunbar, who is the Executive Director of Emergency Response and Recovery within the Ministry of EMCR, and Connie Chapman, Executive Director of the Water Management Branch with the Ministry of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. For the media on the line, please press *1 to enter the queue. You'll have one question and one follow-up. For the media in person, we'll start in the room. Please state your name and your outlet. You'll have one question and one follow-up. Go ahead.
Thanks for taking my question. I'm a reporter from the Canadian Press. I have a question for Minister Parmar. I wonder why has the government has not issued a state of emergency as it did on similar devastating wildfire season. Thank you.
I can take that question. The provincial state of emergency enables specific powers for the province to take. Right now, every single jurisdiction in BC that is fighting a wildfire has a state of local emergency in place that enables our first responders and firefighters to take the action that they need to fight the wildfire, protect communities, and protect lives. At the current moment, a provincial state of emergency does not enable the tools that are necessary, but if that changes, we won't hesitate to ask or put in place a provincial state of emergency. Those tools are not needed right now. Tools such as restricting travel and rationing supplies like fuel or accommodations, commandeering accommodations. Those tools aren't needed right now. But I will turn it over to Kevin Dunbar online, who can add more operational expertise.
Thank you very much, Minister. And I understand why we keep receiving this question. For communities facing significant impacts right now, for people who are evacuated, you want to know that the province is doing everything in our power to help. And we are. And I just want to reinforce what the minister said. There are currently states of local emergency in place across the province that are giving local authorities, First Nations, and us as the province all the power and resources that we need to respond to these emergencies, to keep people safe, to ensure they have accommodations, and ultimately getting them home as quickly as we can. To give an example, we are bringing in resources from Alberta Emergency Management to help support our operations. We are continually looking for accommodation options, including group lodging, hotel accommodations throughout the province, so that everyone who is evacuated has a place to sleep. Should additional powers or resources be operationally required, we would make that recommendation and we'd be comfortable making that recommendation. To be clear, we have not made that recommendation at this point. We have the resources that we need to support communities closely. For some additional context, when a provincial state of emergency was declared in August, August 2023, we were facing one of the worst wildfire seasons in BC's history at that point. And there was a shortage of temporary accommodations for evacuees and for personnel, and there was a need to restrict non-essential travel to the area. We are not in a position where we need to take those actions today operationally to be able to deliver the response and support communities and support evacuees. Again, if we are at a place where these powers would help us operationally with this response, a recommendation we made at that point. I just want to say again, a huge thank you to the local governments, First Nations, ESS volunteers, first responders, BC wildfire staff, our own staff here at the MCR. There are a lot of folks working around the clock to ensure that people are safe, are able to evacuate safely, and ultimately able to get home as safely as they can. And we have the power and resources we need to do that. Thank you for the question.
Follow-up.
Yes, thanks, Minister Greene, and thanks, Kevin. It's likely that many people, they lost their home, they don't have home insurance. So I wonder, what will BC government do to help these people recover? Thank you.
I've been made aware of some tragic losses of homes and other structures. We are working with local governments to assess what the current damages are. It is still too soon to be able to tell exactly what the losses might be, and we continue to work with our local government partners and First Nations to understand the extent of damage and assess when people can go home, because I know that despite some of the terrible structure losses, and I feel terribly for people who have lost their home, there are other people who are also anxious to understand what's happened to their community and return back. So that work continues, and I'm sure that we'll have more to say in weeks ahead in conjunction with our First Nations and local government partners.
Next.
Kurt Black, City News. We saw the Mexican firefighters arrive in the province yesterday. Do we know yet where they'll be headed and when they'll be joining the fight?
I'll turn that to one of our online folks. Probably Cliff Chapman would like to respond to that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. First, worth noting that all of our resources are provincial in nature, even the ones that come from out of province, and so we will decide where they go based on where the need is, which doesn't necessarily mean the highest priority fire every time. It means where we need the resources on the ground. This particular contingent, this first 100 that came, they are going to Big Bar in the Caribou Fire Center to help support the fires in and around Clinton, 70 Mile, in that area. So they'll be traveling there today.
Perfect. And just a follow-up, with any wildfire season, there's a lot of anxiety and stress, and there have been some folks that have been impacted online that have been critical of the response by the province. What would be your message to those folks that are going through a tough time and are frustrated at this point?
I'll ask Minister Parmar, and I believe Kevin Dunbar also has some words to add.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much. I've had a conversation with a woman whose parents live in Clinton and had to leave their homes. She grew up in Clinton her entire life and was thinking about her home community and her family and her neighbors. This is a really challenging time for those in the Okanagan and the Caribou and all the other areas that Cliff described as challenges we face so far this season, as well as the challenges we face in the weeks ahead. I want to assure all British Columbians, as Cliff has done earlier in his remarks, that we are certainly in for some challenging days ahead, but the BC Wildfire Service is ready to go. Our Wildfire Service is committed to helping to protect people and communities, but we are dealing with some very extreme fire behavior. And as Cliff will speak to, I'm sure in future questions, the priority of people and communities is of our utmost priority, but also our wildland firefighters. And so I know that sometimes people may not see the visibility in fires and in the form of folks on the ground, boots on the ground, and aerial equipment. I think it's also important to acknowledge, as I got a briefing on the Brunswick complex yesterday, that it can be very challenging terrain, steep terrain, and also the smoke can make it very difficult for our aerial equipment to fly as well. The priority of our wildland firefighters, our aerial pilots, everyone in British Columbia is our utmost priority.
Thanks very much for the question. I just really want to start by acknowledging that being evacuated is incredibly disruptive and a really challenging time for people. So I completely empathize and understand the impacts this is having and why folks may be frustrated. What I want people to take away from this is, as the province, we're doing everything that we can in our power to support you, keep you safe, and ensure people have a safe place to sleep, have the supports they need while they're evacuated, and ultimately get them home safely as soon as they can. We take a significant amount of steps to prepare for these eventualities. We pre-position capacity to set up group lodging, to find accommodations for people. The minister mentioned at the beginning the opportunities you can take to pre-register for emergency support services as well. One of the things that I was really struck with over this last weekend is that in a large evacuation like this, it is going to stretch our system. But I saw local authorities, First Nations, emergency support services volunteers, the RCMP, BC Wildfire, the list is too long to list, people stepping up to support their neighbors. Group lodging was quickly established in Kamloops, Kelowna, Vernon, and volunteers worked around the nights to ensure that people had the support they need. We had contracts in place with Samaritan's Purse, supported our response, and I'm sure I've missed somebody in this because the list was incredibly long, and the folks that step up in BC to support their neighbors. And for individuals, I would really encourage you to have your preparedness ready, have an evacuation plan, have your emergency plan, pre-register for ESS, have a grab-and-go bag. Anything that you can be better prepared with ensures that these responses are as effective as they can. And I think as we go into the weeks ahead, we know that there are going to be accommodation challenges as we're in the busy tourist season. So if you can stay with friends and family if you're evacuated, please do. This makes it easier for another evacuee to get the support or the hotel room that they might need. So thank you very much.
Next question.
From CBC News. Just wanted to follow up on the evacuation order stuff. We know sometimes that people ignore evacuation orders. Are you noticing an increase at all this year with people choosing to stay behind to protect their properties? And is there anything more that the province could potentially do to combat some of those people making those choices other than just messaging?
I know that receiving an evacuation order is an incredibly stressful experience for people. Having to leave your home and everything behind is incredibly difficult, and the uncertainty is really hard on people. But following an evacuation order is so important. It keeps you and your family safe. It enables first responders to do their job and keep the community safe. If you choose to stay behind, we may not be able to get back to you if an emergency happens. If conditions are too dangerous, first responders aren't able to enter the area. We want to make sure that everybody is kept safe. These evacuation orders are a last resort to keep people and community safe. They are not made lightly, and they're made with very good reason. I'm asking everybody to make sure that they're following the orders. It's incredibly important. It's the law, but it just is for your safety and for the safety of first responders.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just for Minister Parmar with regards to mitigation. We heard from an expert from SFU's Wildfire Mitigation Initiative this morning, just talking about how the wildfire seasons are seemingly lasting longer and becoming more intense. Is there more that the province could be doing, perhaps in the lead up or after fire season, to kind of make it less reactive, less of a reaction to these fires and more preventative measures?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was just in Merritt earlier this morning, chatting with some of having some really deeply motivating conversations with some of our partners, the Nicolet Chiefs, in particular Stewie Resources, about the need for us to continue our efforts this wildfire season, but also plan ahead. I'm a big believer that the best wildfire is the one that doesn't start, and that ensures that we need to step up our efforts in wildfire mitigation. Over the course of the last number of years, we've invested hundreds of millions of dollars in fire smarting, groundland wildfire risk reduction projects, and it's very clear that we're going to have to take this to the next level. I'm certainly going to be having conversations in my time here in the interior about the steps that the forest sector can play in going into our wildland urban interface areas and doing more wildfire risk mitigation work, commercial thinning, selective logging, partial harvesting, trying to remove that fuel risk that we are certainly seeing with some of these fires. We've invested, as I noted earlier, in many projects. We have about 500 projects that we've completed just in the last number of years, with about 200 that are currently underway. This will be a very big priority for my ministry in the weeks ahead.
Our next question, we'll move over to the phone lines. Rob Buffin, CTV News. Rob, go ahead.
Oh, hi. Thanks for taking my question. I guess I'm hoping to get a response from Minister Greene as well as maybe Minister Parmar. I'm just wondering, I know there was a question about how many structures were lost, and you don't have the specifics on that, but I've seen online tweets about 230 properties in a certain area. Like, are you able to give us a ballpark as to even roughly how many homes may be damaged as a result of wildfires currently in the province, and whether it's, I guess, in the Bradley Creek area as well as Clinton, that the bulk of these properties have been damaged or destroyed, as well as if there's been any loss of life or to humans or pets?
It's an important question that I think local governments are in the best position to be able to answer. These assessments are ongoing. The last thing I want is for somebody to learn that they lost their home on the evening news. And so we continue to work with our local government partners to be able to do these assessments. And they take the lead on informing people who may have damage or loss to their properties. I'm not aware of any loss of life, thank goodness. And I will turn it over to Kevin Dunbar for more details on that.
Thanks very much, Minister, and thanks for the question. And I do understand why this question comes up. I think there is people want to understand the impacts and want to understand what's happened. I think two things. I know earlier today, the Okanagan Indian Band had a media availability, and they did confirm that there were some structure losses and impacts. I think what's really important to flag is this is still a dynamic situation. There are still areas that are too dangerous to access. There is still active wildfire fighting happening in the area. So the First Nation will conduct a full damage assessment when it's safe to do so, and then they'll release that information when it's available. And EMCR and the province will support them through their efforts. But as the minister mentioned, our local authorities and First Nations will have the most up-to-date information on this, and will be undertaking full damage assessments and releasing that information when it's safe and when they're able to do so.
Rob, do you have a follow-up?
Oh, I do. I guess it's kind of a two-parter. I'm just wondering, I did see some reporting from that presser that Mr. Dunbar was referencing about 230 homes. I'm just wondering, even if in broad strokes you're able to confirm that there are, at this point, likely hundreds of homes across the province that have been damaged or destroyed. And the other part of the question is, there seems to be a conspicuous absence of U.S. firefighters. There's people from Mexico and all across Canada. Is it just because of the intensity of the wildfires in Washington state that all those resources are needed there? Or why are we seeing no wildfire fighters from California or otherwise?
I'll pass it to Cliff Chapman on the question about wildfire resources coming from other jurisdictions.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you for the question. I think for those who aren't aware, the Pacific Northwest in particular in the United States is going through their own very, very challenging wildfire situation right now, including Spokane and other areas around Washington. I also, on Sunday on the media avail, I spoke about a couple of fires that are in the northern United States that are actually crossing into British Columbia. So we are working very closely with our partners in the United States, in particular in Washington, Oregon, California, both for the exchange of resources, but also how do you fight a fire that's half on the American side and half on the Canadian side. And we work really seamlessly in those operations, both from an aircraft perspective and on the ground perspective. So the reason you're not seeing an influx of United States firefighters coming to Canada but also specifically British Columbia, is because they are in a national preparedness level 5, which is on a scale of 1 to 5. So they are at the top end of their own wildfire situation. And if we weren't as busy as we were, they may be asking for our support.
Our next question is from Christian Robinson, Global News. Christian, go ahead. Or Kirsten, sorry. Kirsten, go ahead.
Thank you. No worries. My question is for the Minister of Forests and Cliff Chapman. A Kelowna construction manager says he was able to save his development on Westside Road by setting up sprinklers as the Bradley Creek fire moved in Saturday. He believes more homes could have been saved if firefighters from Lake Country, BX, Swan Lake, and Kelowna weren't, as he says, quote, handcuffed from higher ups. He claims local fire crews told him they wished they could help but had to wait for direction from the province. And there was a 2.5-hour delay before structural protection was set up. Can you respond to that? And again, if we can please hear from the Minister and BC Wildfire.
Minister Parmar?
Yeah, thanks very much. Certainly my thoughts go out to anyone who's impacted by wildfires. I haven't heard about the particular case of that gentleman, and so I'll certainly be following up with my team, but happy to turn it over to Cliff to talk about the specifics. No doubt that was a challenging wildfire, and as Cliff noted, from a resourcing perspective, very challenging conditions posed on our wildfire and our aerial fleet.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think one of the reasons I tried to pre-address a couple of the questions we've been receiving is because we do often get this type of a question. And I just want to dispel this idea that we're waiting for someone in Victoria or Kamloops to give the green light. We give our people on the ground, the ability to make decisions on the ground. And their first and foremost thought is, how do I protect the humans? How do I protect the first responders, and how do I protect the people who are being evacuated? And then we go on to structure protection and structure defense of hundreds of structures that have been saved across southern BC this fire season because of our commitment to structure protection and structure defense, our commitment to our partnerships with local governments, First Nation governments, and their associated fire departments. And yes, it was very, very challenging on the Okanagan Lake. On the west side of Okanagan Lake. That fire had sustained winds of 85 kilometers an hour. So the question of responder safety was significant, but we still were actioning that fire. We had aircraft in the sky. We had people on the ground. I am pleased to hear perhaps about this individual who put sprinklers up. That is also how we do structure protection and structure defense. And we are still in there today doing that. We are on fires in the Southeast Fire Center doing that. It is part of our commitment to work more closely with municipal fire departments. So I hadn't heard that specifically. Certainly, as Minister mentions, we will follow up on that. But to be clear, the Kamloops Fire Center and the local responders they are not waiting for the green light from Kamloops or Victoria. They do what is best, what needs to be done on every fire that starts in this province.
Do you follow up?
Yes. Under what circumstances would smaller fire departments need the green light from BC Wildfire in order to engage in structure protection that could save homes?
Turn that over to Cliff Chapman.
Yeah, so they don't need a green light from BC Wildfire Service. So, you mentioned a few departments there. Those are what you would call mutual aid departments versus a structural fire department within a municipality. Those municipalities, they are trained through the Office of the Fire Commissioner to go and do fire suppression, including exterior defense from wildfires. So they do not need to wait for a green light from us. If they are the local fire department, they're in jurisdiction. Then once we arrive, we work together to decide how best to utilize all the resources, including all the surrounding departments that were mentioned in your first question. So there is no waiting. It's really, again, just like our organization, from a structural fire department perspective, they also need to make sure they are protecting their own responders' lives and then start to go to work, and they do so. So, again, don't know the specifics of your question, but I can assure you that there is no waiting. It's really just comes down to, the conditions are so explosive right now. I spoke on Sunday. The conditions are such, we've never seen fuel dryness the way we are seeing it right now. And then when you put 85 to 100 kilometer winds on top of that, it is an explosive and extremely dangerous situation in BC. And we saw that play out on the Bradley Creek fire.
Our next question is from Lauren Collins, Black Press Media. Lauren, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. People in the impacted communities are wondering if Premier David Eby will be publicly addressing the wildfire situation or making a statement to those directly affected anytime soon. They're saying the silence has been deafening.
I totally understand that people are very stressed out right now. They are evacuated. There's a lot of uncertainty on when they'll be able to return home and what comes next. Our province is supporting everyone who's evacuated with emergency support services if they need them. That support includes accommodation, clothing, incidentals, food. But we are also asking people to be prepared themselves with a grab-and-go bag, pre-registering for ESS. We will continue to support communities with response led by the BC Wildfire Service, as well as my ministry, emergency EMCR. It's important that people know that they will be supported if they're evacuated, and that our BC Wildfire Service is doing everything that they can to protect lives and protect communities.
Follow-up?
Yes. Is the province considering a backcountry closure amid all the wildfires?
For that one, I will pass it over to Cliff Chapman to answer that operationally.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Similar, that this is a question we receive quite frequently, in particular when it's hot and dry, and when we have fires on the land base. This is something we assess daily. Really, all of our prohibitions and all the extent of legislation that we can utilize, all the way up to a backcountry closure. Saying that, and I think Minister Parmar mentioned it as well, we rely on British Columbians, in particular in the backcountry, to tell us about fires that are back there. We are highly focused in the interface right now. Many of our fires are threatening communities, and obviously we are putting essentially all of our resources on those fires. So having people in the backcountry responsibly being in the backcountry is not a bad thing for British Columbia, because the faster we are alerted of a new fire, the faster we can respond to it. So for now, we are still holding on not closing the backcountry, specifically for that reason, allowing people to still enjoy the great outdoors. And our ask is, and we've seen this over the last number of years, our ask is that people are vigilant. People are careful when they're in the backcountry. We have campfire bans on almost everywhere, so you should not be. And we have not seen a bunch of unattended campfires. So people are more responsible as BC, unfortunately, continues to grapple with this year in and year out, the challenge of fire seasons and hot and dry weather. So at this point in time, we are not using the backcountry closure for those reasons.
Our next question is from Colin Slark, Price George Citizen. Colin, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. There are just about, I think, 20 of wildfire evacuees in Prince George currently, but with a lot of the north-south highway routes currently closed for wildfires, due to wildfires rather, I was wondering where any further evacuees may be directed should populated areas get threatened in the southern and central interior.
We work very closely making plans with both local governments, First Nations, and working with our colleagues at the Ministry of Transportation to make sure that we understand which routes people can take in the event that they are evacuated. People can also check up-to-date information about route closures or detours at drivebc.ca. And in the event that you are evacuated, your evacuation order will include instructions such as where to go, which routes to take, where the reception center will be. For additional comment, I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Thanks, Minister, and thank you for the question. I know folks are always going to be anxious and want to understand where to go if an emergency happens. Like, there's two things to take into account. If you're traveling through BC at the moment, it's important that you know before you go. Look on Drive BC and understand what routes are available. You can look on Emergency Info BC or on local government websites or the BC Wildfire app as well to understand where there are evacuation orders and alerts. There are also significant places within the province that are available and people can access. And when it comes to evacuations, EMCR works directly with local authorities, First Nations, and ESS programs to plan for evacuations and plan for various contingencies within evacuations. We take steps to pre-position and have group lodging established in various strategic places throughout the province so that we always have different options available when an evacuation is underway. We have a number of group lodging spaces available in the southern interior at the moment, and we also have some available in Prince George and other areas in the north. And there are other areas within the province that we can stand up at very quick notice and have supports from our partners like Samaritan's Purse or the Canadian Red Cross or other nonprofits or other ESS programs to establish those very, very quickly for us so that folks have a reception center, a place to go, and a safe bed for the night. We also are continually scanning and looking for accommodation and hotel accommodation options and ensure that those are available in key places throughout the province so that we have various options for folks to go. This situation, accommodation options, routes, highway closures, those can change continually through an emergency. And so we work to stay on top of that and to proactively plan. I think what's really important is that individuals are also prepared themselves. Have your emergency plan, have a grab and go bag, and if you can, pre-register for emergency support services. And as I mentioned earlier on this, there are options under emergency support services for you to go find your own accommodation or stay with friends, stay with families. And if you can do that, and I know not everyone can, but if you can do that, I would encourage you to do so. This means that those group lodging facilities and hotels we can make available for those individuals that don't have that option. Thank you.
Follow up?
Oh, yes, sorry. I was also, for the communities who are hosting evacuees, I know you mentioned their group lodgings and you can activate some resources. Could you provide some more specifics on what you're offering these communities who are hosting people displaced by the fires?
I'll turn that over to Kevin Dunbar.
Definitely. Great question. Where I really want to start here is I just want to put a huge thank you out there to local governments, First Nations, ESS volunteers. There are a ton of communities across BC that are stepping up to support their neighbors, to support people that are evacuated and support people through a really difficult time. Unfortunately, this isn't new to BC. And I think, fortunately, we constantly see British Columbians step up to support each other. And that's something that I'm incredibly proud to watch. For host communities and communities that are supporting evacuees, we work closely with them to reimburse costs related to running group lodging and establishing group lodging facilities, also accommodation opportunities, and also to help establish and run reception centers as well for people. And this is where we also partner with other service providers such as Samaritan's Purse and Canadian Red Cross to go in and work with reception centers and group lodging facilities. We know that evacuations are disruptive. They're disruptive to the communities evacuated, and they're also have an impact on the communities hosting. What I've been really proud of across BC is I have seen communities step up and continue to provide that support to their neighbors, and they've done it willingly, quickly, and in the case of this last weekend, very, very late into the night. Thank you.
Question is from Tyler Olson, the Tyee. Tyler, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. You talked yesterday about how burn scars were having less of an influence on fire behavior in some areas because of the drought conditions. Can you talk more about how this summer might be changing how BCWS thinks about the influence of previous fires and fire tactics?
I'll turn that over to Cliff Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler. Really appreciate that question. I did speak a little bit on Sunday about some of the experiences we've been having this season, but also in past seasons. I think it's more acute this season because we've had fires return to areas from really like 2017, 2018, 2021, including, the fires in and around near Clinton and Green Lake with the Elephant Hill fire from 2017. And historically, when I started my career 20 plus years ago, burn scars would give us like a 10 to 20 year sort of buffer, especially if it was a high intensity burn like Elephant Hill, that we could then use as a control line. I think what we're learning, and again, we got work to do with some of our industry counterparts on researching this to really figure out what it means and how we adjust our tactics. We've already adjusted our tactics on the fly, recognizing that when we need to put a control line in, that we will have to build it through an old burn scar instead of using the old burn scar as a potential control line. So we've adjusted our tactics on the fly as we've kind of experienced this. Even a fire that's only 7 years old is now being able to display what I would say is like significant extreme fire behavior, and no longer allowing us to use that as a control feature. So more learning to be done, absolutely, but we have adjusted our tactics on the fly. Our incident management teams and our responders are aware of this, and as fires approach old burn scars, we're doing work to reinforce those so that we can use them as effective control lines.
Tyler, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just for one of the ministers, Lauren's question earlier about whether the Premier will be speaking about this wasn't actually answered directly. Can someone directly answer that, please?
Thank you for the question. I know that right now it's an incredibly stressful time for people in British Columbia, particularly those on evacuation order and alert. We are supporting people with emergency support services for everybody who needs it. As Kevin said, there is a bed for everybody who needs it. We will continue to take every action necessary in order to keep people and communities safe. And I'll turn it over to Minister Parmar.
Yeah, thanks very much, Minister Greene. I just wanted to add that I am in touch with the Premier regularly. As you can imagine, the Premier is concerned about the wildfire situation here in British Columbia and is asking many of the questions that many British Columbians are asking as well. We're regularly keeping him briefed, and I know that he's engaging with local leaders when required. It's one of the reasons why I'm up here in Kamloops today. I wanted to take the opportunity to provide my thank you to Cliff directly, who I saw a little bit earlier today, and we'll see in a moment, and his team and the entire teams. Our wildland firefighters are doing incredible work every single day, working 20 plus hours a day to be able to help protect British Columbians. We know we have challenging days ahead. I'm going to have an opportunity to meet with the Mayor of Clinton tomorrow and engage with the Mayor of Lytton this afternoon. I want to thank all of our local government leaders, all of our community leaders, all those who are doing their part to be able to help support British Columbians in their time of need. And I know that the Premier is engaged in those conversations, and I'm certainly in touch with him on a daily basis.
That concludes today's event. Thank you very much, everyone.